Hello and welcome to Wavescan, the international DX program from Adventist World Radio. Researched and written in Indianapolis by Dr. Adrian Peterson and produced in the studios of WRMI Shortwave in Miami, Florida. I'm Jeff White. Today on Wavescan, the 75th anniversary of radio broadcasting in the Troubled Isles, the 2013 annual meeting of the National Association of Shortwave Broadcasters in Birmingham, Alabama, and our Japan DX report. The inhabited and uninhabited islands in the South Atlantic have been in dispute for more than 100 years. A total of 5 major island groups make up these troubled isles, and in a semicircular pattern, these disputed island groups are the Falkland Islands, South Georgia Islands, South Sandwich Islands, South Orkney Islands, and South Shetland Islands. They're mostly of volcanic origin, and they are a group of island clusters on uprising mountain ridges. Politically, all 5 of these island groups were annexed as territories of Great Britain in the 1800s and 1900s, though Argentina and Chile, and at times other countries also, have laid claims to at least some or all of these island territories. However, currently they are administered by the United Kingdom in 3 groups as follows: the Falkland Islands as a British overseas territory, South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands as another British overseas territory, and South Orkney and South Shetland Islands as British Antarctic territory. As far as wireless and radio are concerned, 2 of these island groups, South Sandwich and South Shetland, have had no real involvement in the significant events of electronic history, apart from the fact that there have been occasional amateur de-expeditions to these isolated islands, and on occasions communication transmitters have been used by Navy vessels, passenger ships, and aircraft on patrol. As far as is known, no wireless or radio station has ever been established on land in these 2 island groups. The story of wireless and radio on South Georgia was presented here in Wavescan some 3 years ago, and just briefly, this is what happened. Coastal wireless station ZBH was established at King Edward Point on South Georgia back in the year 1925 for regular Morse code communication locally and further afield. Then on Sunday morning, May 29, 1938, station ZBH was on the air as the coordinating point for the relay to the United States and Europe of programming and news associated with the early morning total solar eclipse. 2 small portable transmitters were also in use for on-the-spot eclipse news, one at a suitable location on South Georgia and another in the South Orkney Islands. Back in March 1947, an international radio monitor in the United States reported in the American monthly journal Radio News that station ZBH was noted on shortwave with a relay of the BBC News at 6 a.m. This report stated, though, that the relay schedule was quite irregular. In 1992, a subsidiary communication station with the call sign ZBH22 was in use on Bird Island, just off South Georgia. And in 2006, a series of postage stamps depicting radio station ZBH was issued on behalf of the South Georgia Post Office. That brings us now to the story of wireless and radio in the South Orkney Islands. This island group is, in reality, the top of an underwater mountain range some 375 miles from Antarctica. There are 4 main islands, with Laurie Island at the extreme eastern end of this underwater ridge. The prevailing climate is cold, wet, and windy. The South Orkney Islands were discovered by seal expeditioners Nathaniel Palmer and George Powell from Great Britain in 1821 and named Powell's Group. Another seal hunter, James Weddell from Scotland, arrived 2 years later, and he renamed the islands as South Orkney in honor of the northern Scottish islands with a similar name. In 1903, another expedition from Scotland visited South Orkney, and this was under William Bruce on the ship Scotia. He conducted the first geographic survey of the island group and he also installed a meteorological station on Laurie Island in a building that he constructed and named Ormond House. Before leaving the area, he sold the weather station and the building to Argentina, and Argentine personnel took over on February 22, 1904. In 1925, the Argentine government gave approval for the installation of a wireless station on Laurie Island, and this was officially inaugurated 2 years later, on March 30th, 1927, under the call sign LRT. This radio base, now known as Orcanes Base, communicated with station LIK at Ushuaia in Argentina. In 1949, the functions of the already established post office and the radio station were combined into one organizational unit. Over the years, a few amateur de-expeditions have been conducted on Laurie Island in the South Orkneys, and these have included LU-7ET, LU-5EAS, and AY-1ZA from Argentina, and VP-8AOB from England. Currently, a 25-watt omnidirectional aircraft beacon is operational at the Laurie Island base, and this is on the air on 295 kilohertz long wave under the call sign DNO. Regarding the 75th anniversary of radio broadcasting from these southern islands, there was a solar eclipse in the area in the early hours of Sunday morning, May 29, 1938. The British arranged for special broadcasts from these islands for the occasion, and two small portable transmitters were stationed at two different locations, one on South Georgia and the other on South Orkney. It is understood that both of these transmitters operated on shortwave in the old Apex high-fidelity band, 30 to 40 megahertz, as remote broadcast units, as was the custom in those days. It is stated that the live broadcasts from the two small portable transmitters were picked up by communication station ZBH on South Georgia and then relayed to the United States and Europe via a commercial shortwave station located on the South American mainland. Thus it is that the only known radio broadcast from the South Orkney Islands was heard for just a few minutes as a remote broadcast via a low-power shortwave transmitter, and this took place just 75 years ago on May 29, 1938. This 75th anniversary took place just last Wednesday.
You're listening to Wavescan from Adventist World Radio. Send your comments and reception reports to Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229 in the United States. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229 in the USA. Or you can email us at wavescan@awr.org. Our email once again, wavescan@awr.org.
Brady Murray, the operations manager of WWCR in Nashville, Tennessee, which is one of the stations that broadcasts this program, Wavescan, was elected president of the National Association of Shortwave Broadcasters at the NASB 2013 annual meeting in Birmingham, Alabama, May 15th to the 17th. He replaces former president Glenn Tapley of WEWN, whose term ended after 2 years as the association's president. Brady Murray had previously been vice president of the NASB, and Charles Caudill, president of World Christian Broadcasting, also based in the Nashville area, was elected the new NASB vice president. As full disclosure, yours truly and my wife Thais White of WRMI in Miami were reelected Secretary-Treasurer and Assistant Secretary-Treasurer of the NASB. 2 NASB Board of Directors terms ended this year, those of Glenn Tapley of WEWN and Dr. Adrian Peterson of AWR, who is, of course, the editor of this program, Wavescan. 2 new directors were elected, Terry Borders of WEWN and Dr. Dowell Chow, president of Adventist World Radio. Terry Borders is the manager of the WEWN transmitter site in Van Diver, Alabama. Dr. Chow is based at AWR headquarters in Silver Spring, Maryland, but spends much of his time traveling around the world. The meeting was hosted by NASB member Eternal Word Television Network, EWTN, which operates shortwave station WEWN. A welcome reception took place on the evening of May 15th, followed by a dinner sponsored by EWTN at a renowned Birmingham barbecue restaurant. On May 16th, the meeting took place at EWTN headquarters in Irondale, which is a suburb of Birmingham. Glenn Tapley of WEWN, who was still the NASB president, opened the meeting.
Mother Angelica, our foundress, became a nun back in 1953. In 1962, she established the Our Lady of the Angels Monastery, and during the 70s, she was an in-demand lecturer and produced religious pamphlets, audio and videotapes recorded at a local Birmingham television station. She was a guest on CBN and Trinity. By means of a television station in Chicago, she had a tour, and she said, I can do this. Actually, she told me once, and probably repeated it again, that if she had known what she was getting into, she would never have done it. But the fact that she didn't know what was coming up helped her to get through it. So she always said this place is providential. EWTN began broadcasting on April 15th, 1981. 4 hours of daily programming, which included her own show, which was Mother Angelica Live, Sunday Mass, and reruns of older Catholic programs like Bishop Fulton Sheen. Something I enjoyed watching before I knew much about the network, they ran old classic television shows like The Lone Ranger and George Burns and Gracie Allen and Roy Rogers and the like. So that's kind of how I started watching the network. And then I saw the nuns, praying the rosaries in the offices from a garage, and that's what actually where EWTN started, was a garage just on the other side of this building, the campus. So here we are now. We've got satellites taking the signal around the globe from the United States to Africa, Europe, Pacific Rim, and South America, and of course shortwave to Mexico, South America, Caribbean, Europe, Southeast Asia. Local AM/FM stations in the United States. We have streaming radio such as iHeartRadio. We're on Sirius Satellite, and we actually have a newspaper as well. So the place has grown over the years, and we're very thankful to be a part of it. Again, just want to invite you to come on our tour, which we're about to leave, and then we'll come back here and we'll begin the day. So get your walking shoes on and follow Terry Borders.
Glenn Tapley of EWTN opening the NASB 2013 annual meeting. The attendees toured the large state-of-the-art EWTN television studios, watching part of a live broadcast and observing how a Catholic Mass in Latin is translated and closed captioned. They saw the television and radio control rooms and the studios where EWTN radio and WEWN shortwave programs are produced. After the tour, there were a series of talks and presentations about shortwave-related subjects for the rest of the day. Dr. Dal Chow of Adventist World Radio gave an overview of AWR's worldwide operations. He said that AWR operates with only 30 employees, but with the help of many more people who work at AWR studios around the world, producing programs in over 80 languages. The NASB was pleased to welcome back a former member station, KVOH, in Simi Valley, California, which has been off the air for some time. The license is still held by La Voz de Restauración Broadcasting, but the Strategic Communications Group, headed by Reverend John Tayloe, is managing the station under the current owner's leadership. Tayloe's father-in-law was George Otis, who originally founded the station as part of the Voice of Hope network, which included stations in the Middle East. The new managers are refurbishing the station's shortwave transmitter, and they hope to have it back on the air within the next 90 days or so, with programs in English and Spanish. The antenna is beamed from Southern California toward Mexico and Cuba. NASB meeting delegates had a chance to meet the new vice president of Continental Electronics, who has recently taken over from Adil Mina, a regular fixture at NASB meetings for many years. Mina has recently semi-retired to spend more time with his family and more time at his home in Greece. His successor, Mike Rosso, gave a presentation in Birmingham about Continental Electronics and about Digital Radio Mondiale, DRM, its status, and its plans for the near future. He was followed by Mark Allen of the Roan Tower Company, NASB's newest associate member, who talked about considerations for aging broadcast tower structures. Allen gave a sobering report complete with photos of the disasters that can occur when antenna towers are not properly maintained. He explained how faulty lighting, ice, wind, and construction errors can easily cause accidents that result in extensive property damage, serious injuries, and even death. In these days of financial cutbacks, Allen explained that tower maintenance is not an area that broadcasters should cut back on. Charles Caudle, president and CEO of NASB member World Christian Broadcasting, gave an update on his organization's struggle to get a new shortwave station on the air from the island of Madagascar, off the southeast coast of Africa. Madagascar World Voice has had its transmitter site ready, with antennas erected for a few years now, but is waiting on approval from the Madagascar Communications Minister to import its transmitters and put the station on the air. Thursday's talks continued with Brady Murray of WWCR on the use of shortwave radio as an educational broadcasting tool. A discussion afterwards also dealt with subjects such as the potential for DRM and domestic shortwave broadcasting. Jérôme Irigoyen of NASB associate member Télédiffusion de France, TDF, gave a presentation about his company's large shortwave transmission facility in Issoudun, France. 17 500-kilowatt transmitters and dozens of antennas, including a rotatable version, provide strong coverage of Africa, the Middle East, parts of the Americas, and other regions of the world. Their main client used to be Radio France International, but TDF now sells airtime to a variety of public and private broadcasters from many countries. Finally, Dr. Jerry Plummer, WWCR's frequency manager, spoke about the transition of international broadcasting to the for-profit sector. Plummer explained that while many European public broadcasters have been reducing or eliminating their shortwave transmissions in recent years, many of their facilities are now owned or being used by privately owned and often commercial enterprises. As Jerry Plummer explained, shortwave is definitely not dying. On May 17th, the NASB annual meeting took place at the transmitter site of WEWN on a rural mountaintop about 40 minutes' drive from Irondale. Once delegates reached the top of the mountain, they were treated to some spectacular views of the surrounding Alabama mountains and the 9 large antennas that WEWN uses to reach the Americas, Europe, Africa, and other parts of the world. Inside the transmitter building are 4 500-kilowatt Continental transmitters, which beam 24 hours per day of programming in English and Spanish. WEWN originally broadcast programs in 22 languages, and when it first went on the air, some of its superpower transmissions, particularly on the higher frequencies, made their way into the homes of local residents. As Glenn Tapley explained, we had calls from people who were hearing voices in Chinese coming from their knives and forks. Station personnel visited people's homes to install filters, and some of the highest frequencies were avoided in an attempt to cause less local interference. About 11 employees operate the WEWN transmitter site, which is managed by Terry Borders. On this occasion, some of them were performing double duty as they prepared an excellent barbecue for the NASB attendees. The date and place of the NASB 2014 annual meeting was announced. It will be held at the Voice of America, IBB relay station in Greenville, North Carolina. Initial information is already on the NASB website, which is www.shortwave.org. Click on Annual Meeting. There's also an online registration form for the meeting. The shortwave.org website will also soon have PowerPoint presentations from the NASB 2013 meeting by Dr. Dal Chow about AWR, Mike Rosso with the DRM update, Mark Allen about broadcast tower maintenance, and Jérôme Irigoyen about the TDF Issoudun transmitter site, as well as a summary of Dr. Jerry Plummer's talk about the difficulty of finding in-band HF broadcast frequencies. 3 albums of photos from the NASB 2013 meeting in Birmingham can be found on the NASB's Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/NASB shortwave. Now, let's go to Yukiko Tsuji in Japan with her monthly DX report.
Hello and welcome to the DX Report of the Month from Japan Shortwave Club, edited by Toshi Otake, and I'm Yukiko Tsuji. We have many DX reports from our club members this week. Radio Free Asia via Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia was heard on 7460 kHz on May 1st from 2058 to 2110 UTC in Korean. SIO rating was 554. News program was aired. NBC Sundown, West Sepik, Papua New Guinea was heard on 3205 kHz on May 4th from 1227 to 1249 UTC in Pidgin. SIO rating was 343. Music and talk program were broadcast. PCJ Radio International was received on 11750 kHz on May 19th from 1300 to 1400 UTC in English. SIO rating was 443, then up to 444. Programs aired were News and Happy Station Show. This was one of their test transmissions from Trincomalee, Sri Lanka, which will be repeated on May 26, June 2nd and 9th from 1300 to 1400, targeting East and Southeast Asia with output power of 125 kilowatts. Bangladesh Beta was heard on 15105 kHz on May 7th from 1229 with interval signal to the sign-off at 1300 UTC in English. SIO rating was 332. News, commentary, and pop music were aired. Interference was from China Radio International on 15110 kHz. This station was also heard on 15505 kHz on May 4th from 1358 in Wudo with SIO rating 353. Radio Pakistan was heard on 17520 kHz on May 2nd from 1329 with interval signal to 1345 UTC in Wudu. SIO rating was 252. Quran recitation and the interview program were broadcast. Radio Sultanate of Oman was received on 15560 kHz on May 2nd from 2133 to 2143 UTC in Arabic. SIO rating was 453. Music and talk programs were aired. Radio Kuwait was heard on 17550 kHz on May 5th from 2207 to 2216 UTC in Arabic. SIO rating was 554. Talk program was on there. Call Israel was received on 15760 kHz on May 9th from 1355 with interval signal to 1410 UTC in Farsi. SIO rating was 353. Opening music and ID were heard at 1400, then news started. The parallel frequency 13850 kHz was heard with SIO rating 332. Deutsche Welle via Kigali, Rwanda was heard on 12070 kHz on May 6 from 2000 to 2100 UTC in English. SIO rating was 353. News was broadcast, followed by Africa Link at 2005, Learning by Ear at 2020, Spectrum at 2030. Radio Nationale N'Djamena, Chad, was heard on 6165 kHz on May 2nd from 2029 to 2034 UTC in French. SIO rating was 432. Talk program was on there. Family Radio from Okeechobee, Florida, USA was heard on 17575 kHz on May 5th from 2220 to 2230 UTC in Portuguese. SIO rating was 352. They broadcast a talk program. Finally, Japan Shortwave Club will issue the QSL cards for the correct reports on a segment of WebScan program. We are issuing QSL card by email to the report sent by email. Our address for your email report is jswcqsl@live.jp. I repeat, jswcqsl@live.jp. We continue to issue the printed QSL card by the same system as before. Your report should be addressed to JSWC PO Box 44, Kamakura, which is KAMAKURA, postal code 248-8691, Japan. $1 ILC or $2 for return postage will be appreciated. For this edition of DX Report, we'd like to thank Mr. Iwao Nagatani, Mr. Shoichi Tamane, Mr. Chiaki Shimada, Mr. Mikoto Kidera, and Mr. Satoshi Miyashita for sharing the information with us. Thank you for listening, and please join us for our next edition of DX Report of Japan Showtime Club. I'm Yukiko Tsuji in Tokyo.
Thank you, Yukiko. Our reception report from Vasily Kuznetsov in Moscow confirms that local radio programming from Adventist World Radio is on the air on long wave, medium wave, and FM in the Moscow area. We combine his information together with entries on the AWR website and information in the World Radio TV Handbook and present this scheduling. The Voice of Hope in Russian on Radio Rossiya, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 5:45 a.m. till 5:55 a.m. local time in Moscow on the following frequencies: 261 kilohertz long wave with 500 kilowatts from Taldom Tula transmitter site, 873 kilohertz medium wave with 250 kilowatts from Lesnoy, and 66.44 megahertz in the Russian Band 1 FM from Moscow itself. And we end today's Wavescan, International DX program from Adventist World Radio, with music from Syria, from the singer Salah Nasri. Thanks for listening to Wavescan, researched and written in Indianapolis by Dr. Adrian Peterson. Next week, we'll have much more from and about the National Association of Shortwave Broadcasters annual meeting in Alabama, and our Philippine DX report. A reminder, if you'd like a QSL card for Wavescan, you can send your reception reports to Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. You can send your comments and suggestions and contributions to wavescan@awr.org. If you have access to email, that's wavescan@awr.org. I'm Jeff White at WRMI in Miami. Till next week, good listening, everyone.